And we are also going to go ahead and talk more about what you can go ahead and prepare and how to go ahead and write the essay type question also. So to begin with, I would like to go ahead and talk about the syllabus of Azim Premji University. Now, when we talk about the syllabus, we can divide the entire syllabus in 4 parts. And the first part to talk about is actually microeconomics. In microeconomics, the ideal book that you can follow is ideally Varian or Snyder, up to you. Both books are absolutely fine. And both of them have to be thoroughly done. Either of them, I mean. Both of them have this complete syllabus. Alternatively, you know that we have this entire course as part of the intermediate economics. Even if you do not do the advanced level videos and you only cover all the intermediate level videos, you should be in a very good position to go ahead and cover the entire microeconomics. So now in this microeconomics, what are the important things that you have to cover? One is consumer theory, of course. Then you have the producer theory. Then you have markets like monopoly, like oligopoly, like monopsony, like monopolistic. Then you have risk and uncertainty. And then you have information like asymmetric information, other issues also, right? Like moral hazard. And then you have to talk about the social welfare and public economics. And in this, I have seen that majorly, even when we talk about DU and when we talk about CUET exam and any exam, we see that tax incidence plays a very important role. And, there are questions which come on deadweight laws, tax incidence. This topic is not there in intermediate videos. You will only find this topic in advanced video. So, you should cover this topic also. This is about microeconomic syllabus. Then when we talk about macroeconomics, it covers national income accounting. So you should know how to calculate GDP using all 3 methods. What is GNP? What is private income? What is public income? Then you should talk about fiscal and monetary policies. What is fiscal policy multiplier? Monetary policy multiplier. Then you have to talk about AD and AS curve, ISLM curve, theories of inflation. What is cost pull inflation? What is demand push inflation? You should know the different kind of inflations also. Then solo model, of course. Here there's a good thing that they haven't focused a lot on other models, and they have specifically mentioned about solo model. So if you know solo model well, what is steady state equilibrium? How do you go ahead and find solo equilibrium? How do you find the growth rate of aggregate output, the growth rate of aggregate capital? That's enough. That is a good enough start for you. Then you have expectation theory, in which we do 2 kinds of expectation theory, as you would know, rational expectation and adaptive expectation. This is a separate topic you can find on the portal, which says expectational theories, and you have to go through that. Not in much detail. You should just know bits and pieces of what this expectation theory is. And then we have Lucas' critic, right? This is, again, you can find it under the expectational theory only, talking about Lucas' critic. So this is it. Then we have quantitative methods as the third part. The good thing about quantitative methods is that you don't have any maths coming in here. You only have statistics coming in quantitative methods. So you only will have what is probability, hypothesis testing, ANOVA, regression, but no math at all. So nothing related to sequences, series, nothing related to limits, continuity, etc. No math is being asked. So if you do not have a very solid math background, then you can still get very good score in this exam and you can do extremely well. The kind of questions that they have put in the stats are super simple. I will just show you some questions. So it's a very easy paper that you can easily crack if you have done the basic and intermediate videos well from the course. Okay, finally, we talk about Indian economy. Usually, I think always that, Indian economy is in any exam is the most unpredicted syllabus, because when I talk about anything within Indian economy, it's vast, right? For example, if I tell you planning and major economic reforms, how vast do we go is not clear to us, right? But still, if you would have seen the IIT marathon of Indian economy, and if you have seen my Indian economy videos, they are enough. So we talk about all the 5-year plans, understand what is Gini's coefficient, understand what is Lorentz curve, understand some of the important policies, and we should be good to go. So part A of the paper actually consists of these 4 sections: micro, macro, quantitative statistics, and your Indian economy. There are 4 sections, 10 questions each. And part B of the paper, this is interesting because it consists of essay writing. I will give you a hint of what you should be writing in the essay. But again, this is unpredictable. Every year, they can give any kind of question, right? It's varied. They don't have a particular syllabus for that. So my suggestion would be, you should be good enough you should be reading some of the policies brought in by the government, and you should have some understanding of, how do we go ahead and how do we do hypothesis testing in the real world. So if tomorrow I were to send you to a village, then you should know what kind of what kind of surveys would you be conducting, how would you be conducting those surveys, what is random sampling, what is stratified sampling. So if you put in those words here, because this is essay writing is all about it's kind of what you do in PhDs usually. You're supposed to go ahead and think of a problem, think of the solution of the problem, think how would you be resolving that problem. So you should be very thorough with some aspects of sampling, some aspects of research. That is what they are checking. Of course, you cannot be as thorough as a PhD student, but it would be a good idea to at least go ahead and write some bits and pieces here and there. So let's talk about the practice questions. This is, I picked these questions from 2021 paper on their website. I'm going to do the first 25 questions. I am then going to talk about the essay writing questions. So let's have a look at it. So the first question says, let the utility function be x minus y. Find MRS and slope of the IC curve. Now, when we talk about the utility function, I want to just spend a moment here. So utility is a function of x and y, right? And let's say that this utility has to be constant along an IC, right? Now, I want to go ahead and I want to find out the slope of this indifference curve. So what do? I go ahead and I differentiate this. So I can say how utility changes as x changes into dx, plus how utility changes as y changes into dy, and this is my du. Now, when we talk about an indifference curve, along an indifference curve, utility is held constant. This is my y, this is x. The slope is basically dy perpendicular by base. So dy by dx, that's the slope. So when I go ahead and talk about this is marginal utility of x dx plus marginal utility of y dy. And then you have du. Utility does not change across the indifference curve. So du is 0. So what do you get? You get mu x dx is equal to minus mu y dy. So dy by dx, this becomes minus mu x by mu y. This is the slope. Slope is change in perpendicular by change in base. So this is the slope, right? So when I talk about the slope, it is perpendicular by base, and this is nothing but minus of mu x by mu y. Now, for us, we are given that the utility function is x minus y. So when I go ahead and I talk about the utility function u equal to x minus y, what is my MUX? My MUX is how utility changes as x changes. So if I differentiate this with respect to x, I get 1. What is my MUY? My MUY is how utility changes as y changes. So it is minus 1. If I plug in these values, I will get minus 1 by minus 1. So I will get 1 by 1, which will be 1. So the slope of this indifference curve is coming to be positive. That means that this is not the usual indifference curve equation that they have given in this case. They have given the equation x minus y. Now, supposedly, I were to plot this. Let us go ahead and let us say u is equal to x minus y, right? And let us say that I want to hold my utility constant at 2. So 2 is equal to x minus y, which implies y will be x minus 2. So if I were to plot this indifference curve, this is x, this is y, what is going to happen? When x is 2, y is 0. When x is 3, y is 1. When x is 4, y is 2, and so on. This is an upward sloping IC. This is an upward sloping indifference curve that I have in this case. Please draw a straight line, okay? It's an upward sloping IC. So this is an excellent point that we have seen here. That's why my slope is coming positive. It's an upward sloping line. Now, usually for these kind of indifference curve, we see that MRS is negative. Why is MRS negative? Because when you want to increase the consumption of one good, you are decreasing the consumption of the other good. MRS is the rate at which you do that, right? But we always take positive values because we're interested in understanding the rate. So if I say my MRS XY is 2, it tells me the rate at which I substitute one good for another. Here, if you notice, then substitution is very different. It's very positive. Why? Because when I increase 1 unit of X, I am able to increase 1 unit of Y. When I again increase 1 unit of X, I am able to increase 1 unit of Y. Now, this was just talking about MRS. So we understand that it's also positive. To increase 1X, we increase 1Y. Slope is also positive. But supposedly the question would have been, can you interpret what is the meaning of this indifference curve? This means that one of these goods, and we know which good, is a bad good. When X increases my utility, Y pulls my utility down. So every time I increase X and I increase Y, my utility remains the same. Take an example. Let's say X is pizza and Y is pollution, right? And let's say that my utility is 2. I consume how do we get this utility? Well, I have 2 pizzas and I have 0 units of pollution and I get a utility of 2. Now I want to go ahead and I want to hold my utility constant at 2, but you are starting to giving me 1 unit of pollution. You're exposing me to pollution. You need to increase the number of pizzas that I get. So for every increase in good X, I need to increase good Y, unlike the usual ICs, which are downward sloping. So I hope this is making sense to you that we, in this case, have an upward sloping IC, which means one of these goods are in fact the bad good. This is not asked. They just asked the slope. But in case they ask such questions, you should be thorough with it, right? Now let's come to the next question. Very good question. So Y is a production function such that Y 4L4K is equal to 2 times YLK. Just try to understand this thing. It is increasing your inputs by 4 times, right? So I multiplied labor and capital 4 times each. But my output only got twice. So when I am making 4 times change in labor and capital, output is only increasing by 2 times, which means it is clearly decreasing returns to its scale. So the change in input is more than the change in output. Input is becoming 4 times and output only 2 times. Therefore, this is a decreasing returns to scale. Let us go to the next question. When a firm is perfectly competitive, marginal revenue for the firm is, we know that for a perfectly competitive firm, P is equal to AR is equal to MR. So MR is equal to price. But let's not stop here. Let us think about our MR curve. What is MR? MR is how total revenue changes as quantity changes. Just try to think about it. What is total revenue? Total revenue is price into quantity as quantity changes. So this is how price changes as quantity changes into initial quantity, and how quantity changes as quantity changes into initial price. I'm using product rule here. So differentiation of price with respect to quantity into second function as it is. Differentiation of second function with respect to quantity into first as it is. Now, do we understand that the perfectly competitive firm is a price taker? So if it is a price taker, then del P by del Q is 0. I cannot change my price. I am a price taker. You give me the price. I will work at that price. I cannot change the price at which I work. So I will get MR. This is just 1 into P. So MR is equal to P. So we understand that MR and P are equal. Come to the next question. Let A and B be 2 individuals, XA and XB, the amount of good consumed by them respectively. Now, actually, if you have ever gone through Snyder, chapter 3 of Snyder in the back questions talks about altruism and self-centered individuals. So when we talk about a self-centered individual, he is any individual who does not think about any other individual. And when we talk about an altruistic individual, he is the individual who actually goes ahead and who is interested in the utility of other individuals also. So therefore, what do we know? We know that when we talk about individual A, this individual A, I am given that he is self-centered. He is only concerned about his consumption. So he should not get utility from B's consumption. So which means he cannot get utility from B's consumption. He cannot get utility from B's consumption. So these are incorrect options. Now, individual B is altruistic, which means he gets utility from A's consumption. So how will he get utility from A's consumption? Only if XA is included in his utility function. So the correct answer is this. A should only get utility from XA, but B should get utility from both XA and XB. Okay. Now come to the next question. 2 people A and B are expected utility maximizers. Actually, even if I wasn't given all of this information, I would have still done this question. Why? Because I am given these 2 utility functions. If you refer back to my lecture on uncertainty, you will notice that UX is equal to X squared and UX is equal to root X. This is risk averse individual. And this is risk lover individual. We have done how concavity and convexity of the utility functions tell us whether you are risk, and this is risk neutral. So we have done which individual is risk neutral, which individual is risk lower, which individual is risk averse. Only a risk lower individual will go ahead and buy the ticket. So you know that individual A will buy the ticket, but you can go through the entire process of utility maximization also. Come to the next question. Consider the following two statements about a simple two-person, two-good exchange economy where there are no externalities, information is perfect, individual do not have any market power, utility functions are well defined. What does this mean? It means that all my assumptions, of first welfare theorem are satisfied. Not first only, second also. All assumptions of my fundamental welfare theorems, first and second welfare theorems, are satisfied. This is what it means. Now, if all assumptions of my welfare theorems are satisfied, then we can go to these two welfare theorems. What does the first welfare theorem suggest? Well, it suggests that competitive markets yield Pareto efficient outcome. How do we know that? If you remember, let's take two individuals, A and B. And let's say that this individual A, where will his competitive equilibrium be if his preferences are well defined? Where his MRS is equal to the price ratio. And where will B's competitive equilibrium be? Where his MRS is equal to his price ratio. And if I were to combine these two things together, what will I get? Because they're in the same market, they face the same prices, we will get MRS of individual A should be equal to MRS of individual B. This is what we will get. But isn't this the condition of Pareto efficiency? So we started with the condition of having competitive equilibrium, and we were able to reach the condition of Pareto efficiency. This itself implies that if you have competitive equilibrium, then you will definitely have Pareto efficiency. This is the first welfare theorem. And this is exactly what this is saying, that all Pareto efficient outcomes are achievable, not this one, second one. This is what the second statement is saying. All competitive equilibria are Pareto efficient. We started with competitive equilibrias and we were able to prove Pareto efficiency. That's achieved. Now come to the second statement. Now it says all Pareto efficient outcomes are achievable through competitive equilibrium. This is actually the second welfare theorem. What does this say? So have a look here. Suppose I have an Edgeworth box. And let's say I have a certain Pareto efficient outcome. Let's say my Pareto efficient outcome is here at point E. The question is, does there exist a certain price such that I can achieve competitive equilibrium here? Yes. If I pass my budget line exactly like this, if my budget line is exactly here, then each IC becomes tangent to budget line, which means that they become competitive equilibrium. So I started with Pareto efficiency and I was able to achieve competitive equilibrium. Reverse. Again, if you have any doubts, please go back to my lecture and look at those videos. Even if in the intermediate videos, you go through what we have covered in general equilibrium and the coming chapter, you should be able to very thoroughly understand this. So in second welfare theorem, you start with Pareto efficiency, you go towards competitive equilibrium, right? In the first welfare theorem, you start with competitive equilibrium, you go towards Pareto efficiency. So the two things are very opposite and different of each other. But if all these assumptions are in fact taken care of, then both are true. Now, in our lecture, it's not much required, but you can just go through it. You would see that I have proved how in monopoly this doesn't hold true. So just keep this in mind, okay? That in monopoly, we will not have this welfare theorem holding true. Okay, now come to the next question. So this says, consider 4 different possible market structures. And if these are the conditions, which price will exist where? So consider the first one. The first one says Cournot or it says Cournot or नहीं, this should be just Cournot quantity. Oh, Cournot or quantity competition with 2 firms. So just think about this. If you again remember the lecture that I had taken on Cournot equilibrium, you would remember that we said that the equilibrium quantity in Cournot competition is A minus C upon n plus 1. This is what we did. Again, there were different cases I explained you in the lectures. Depending on, what happens when there are 2 firms, more than 2 firms, same cost, different cost. We introduced that B part in the function, and then we asked what will happen. So we did different cases, but this is a basic case. So if there are n firms, the quantity will be A minus C upon n plus 1. Now it tells me that there are 2 firms in the first case. So I will put n as 2, and each will produce A minus C by 3 units, right? What is price? Price is A minus the total quantity in the market. So it is A minus n times Q. Why? Because again, if you notice, we had proved that firms are symmetric. So each firm will produce same quantity. So first firm also produces this much. Second also produces this much. So total quantity in the market will be 2 times this, right? So when you solve this, you will get price as A plus 2C by 3. Now come to the second case. It says Cournot or quantity equilibrium with infinitely many firms. Now just take care. I have taken a very mathematical approach to this, but you can take an intuitive approach also. So when I say that there are infinitely many firms, it means that it acts like a competitive equilibrium, right? So price will be equal to marginal cost, right? Even if I don't prove it. But I've gone ahead and proved this for you. So how can we do that? So price is A minus NQ, right? How is this coming? It's A minus capital Q, and total quantity in market is N times the quantity of 1 firm. So the quantity produced by 1 firm is A minus C upon N plus 1. So I will get A, if I just multiply N inside, plus NC minus NA upon N plus 1. Now it says that there are infinitely many firms in the market. So I can just go ahead and take limit n tends to infinity. A plus this part. A can come out, it's a constant. So it will be A plus limit n tends to infinity with this part. Now we know when numerator and denominator have the same highest power, you divide it by that. So I've divided numerator by n and denominator also by n. And then I tend n to infinity. We know that limit n tends to infinity, 1 by n is just 0. So this becomes 0 and I will get C minus A here. So A plus C minus A will simply be C, which means that we have proved that price will be equal to marginal cost. So in the second case, we have proved that price will be equal to marginal cost. Third case, it says Bertrand or price competition with two firms. We know Bertrand paradox. So price will be equal to marginal cost. Bertrand or price competition with infinitely many firms. Same, price will be equal to marginal cost. So the only thing that we have observed that here price is greater than marginal cost. If you see, price came more than C, right? And in other cases, it is equal to marginal cost. So my correct answer will be B. Okay, come to the next question. A person's utility function over the amount of rice is in kgs is, this is very good question. I liked it. I'll tell you why. If you remember, we have gone ahead and we have done the basic Cobb-Douglas case. We remember all that, right? So it will be alpha upon alpha plus beta m by px, beta upon alpha plus beta m by py. This is the amount of x and y, right? Now, in this case, what has happened is that it has given you that initially utility function was this. And then it said that this individual, he has 5 kgs of rice at home. He can consume that, but he cannot sell that in the market. And his income is 100. And then he says that his new utility function is this. In this utility function, he has included extra 5 units, and RP is the amount of rice that he is purchasing. He has given price of rice, price of dal, and he's asking what is the amount of rice purchased. So I have to work with this utility function. I am given a budget equation. So price of rice is given as 1 and price of dal is 2. So 1 into RP plus 2 into D is equal to 100. Now tell me something. How do you find the equilibrium condition in consumer MRS is equal to PX by PY? What is your MRS? MUX by MUY. So when you differentiate this with respect to RP, you will get this. When you differentiate this with respect to D, you will get this. So your MRS will be this. What is the slope of budget line? The ratio of the two prices. So it is 1 by 2. You equate this MRS to the slope, right? And you will get this equation. From here, you can find the value of D. Now, we know that our budget line is 1 into RP plus 2 into D is equal to 100. If inside this D, I can plug in this value, my entire function would be only a function of RP. I can go ahead and plug in this value and solve for RP and I will get 37. So they are asking me how much of rice will I go ahead and purchase from the market. I will purchase 37 units of rice. But supposedly in the question, instead of this, they would have said, let's say, they would have said, what is the amount of rice consumed, then you would have said it as 37 plus he consumed 5 of his own from home, so 42. Now, here is the trick. If you would have gone ahead and you would have solved this question using this utility function, you would have got R as 40, and that would have been an incorrect answer. So you have to be very clear that if they have given you a revised utility function, you will be using that revised utility function, right? Okay, come to the next question. Very, very simple. This is just a 2-person game given. You have to find Nash equilibrium. So assume individual 1 goes for D. What is the best thing for individual 2? 5 or 4? 5. Imagine he goes for H. What is the best thing for individual 2? 4 or 3? 4. Then imagine individual 2 goes for D. What is best thing for individual 1? 2 or 3? 3. If he goes for H, what is best for individual 1? 5 or 4? 5. So what is your Nash equilibrium? Where you see both the circles, 3, 4. So it will be H, D. It is C. This becomes your Nash equilibrium. Okay. Come to the next question. A firm has 3 components of its production cost. It has fixed cost, CF, of 10 units. That is independent of the production function. It has raw material, CR, costing CR, varying linearly with quantity produced. And it has labor cost CL, varying as the square of the quantity produced. What is the marginal cost of this firm? Very, very good question. Quite a nice way of writing it. So let's see. What is the total cost of the firm? Fixed cost plus variable cost. Right? So what is the variable cost of this firm? Variable cost will be 2 components. The first component is raw material cost, but this varies linearly with quantity. So CR into Q. And second is labor cost, but this varies with square of the quantity. So CL into Q square. This is your total cost. Can you tell me what will be marginal cost? It will be how cost changes as quantity changes. So it will be CR plus 2CL into Q. This is your marginal cost. This is your first step. The question was asking to find marginal cost. So I have gone ahead and found that out. And that marginal cost, that is coming this. So let's write down. The first step is that I have found my marginal cost as CR plus 2CL into Q. Now it is asking how this marginal cost is changing as quantity is changing. So he's asking how marginal cost is changing as quantity is changing. So if I differentiate it, I will get 2CL. This is greater than 0, which means as my quantity is increasing, I'm getting this positive, marginal cost will increase. So as your quantity increases, marginal cost of the firm will increase. And this is incorrect. Matlab, marginal cost will increase. Now it is asking the rate at which marginal cost will increase. That means you need to differentiate this again. To find the rate of something, you have to differentiate this again. So to understand the rate at which this marginal cost is increasing, we will differentiate this again and get 2, which is constant. So try to understand. 1 First, I differentiated my cost function and I got my marginal cost. Then I'm asking how marginal cost changes as quantity changes. It increases. That means it is increasing. This is MC. Increasing MC. Okay. It's at an increasing rate. Of course, it can't start from 0 because there is some constant component to MC also. Something like this. This is MC. Then it is asking the rate at which MC changes as quantity changes. That means when I go from 1 unit to 2 unit, suppose marginal cost goes from 2 to 4. So if you will go from 2 to 3, it will go from 4 to 6. 3 to 4, it will go from 6 to 8. It will change at a constant rate. It is increasing, but at a constant rate. So the answer to this question is B. Please, this was a good question, very good question. Okay, now let's go and talk about the macroeconomics part. The first question. Consider an open economy where savings propensity is 0.3 and import is 0.2. Value of multiplier is very simple. Multiplier is given by 1 by MPC plus 1 by MPM. So it will be 1 divided by 0.5, which will be 2. So the value of your multiplier is 2. Come to the next question. If growth rate of nominal GDP is 9% and real GDP is 5%, which of the following statement is correct? So just remember this. See, real GDP is nominal GDP divided by price. Okay. Or nominal GDP is real GDP into price. Now, if you remember, then we have done this multiple times, that when two things get multiplied, then in terms of growth, it means that growth of nominal GDP will be growth in price plus growth in output. And you know you can prove this by taking log on both sides. Right? So when you go ahead and you do this, you will get growth in nominal GDP is 9. Growth in real GDP is given as 5. Growth in price remains as it is. So you will get growth in price as 4%. So answer to this question is 4%. Come to the next one. Very tricky way of writing this. I like this question. Consider a closed economy without government intervention. By the income method, GDP is found to be sum of wages and profit. So this is what your GDP is. Wage plus profit. Right. Now it says that assume all wages are spent on consumption expenditure, which means W is equal to C. So if you remember, using expenditure method, I can write GDP as C plus I. Right. Now it tells me that W and C are equal to each other. This means that I can replace this C with W. Both are same. So if I have to equate W plus P, that means wage plus profit, this is also GDP, is equal to C plus I, and W and P are same, so profit and investment will be equal. And it is saying that investment is of 50 billion. So profit will also be of 50 billion. Now somewhere in order to confuse, they said all profit are saved. So theek hai na? We know that savings and investment are equal. So if profits are saved, then that saving is converted to investment. So profit will be exactly 50 billion. Okay, come to the next question. Assume that the only tax which the government levies in an economy is lump sum tax, T, and the economy is demand constrained. The government increases the expenditure by maintaining a balanced budget. So balanced budget means G and T are equal. Which of the following is true? So if you remember, Again, you can go to intermediate macroeconomics. In that, we have this completely done what is a balanced budget. But if you remember, in balanced budget, the multiplier value was 1. You can just go ahead and prove this also. So you can take y is equal to c plus I plus g plus nx. C can be c bar plus cd plus cyd. YD is disposable income. Disposable income is income minus taxes. So this will be C bar plus CY minus CT plus I plus G plus NX. Instead of T, you can write G. So it will be C bar plus CY minus CG plus I plus G plus NX. Right. So you will get, you can bring all Y terms together like this and this. You will get 1 minus CY is equal to A bar plus G 1 minus C. How? You can bring these terms together and all other exogenous variables together. So you will get 1 minus C dy is equal to 1 minus C dg. So dy by dg will be 1. We have proved this multiple times. So the value of balanced budget multiplier is 1. Right? We know this. So which of the statement is wrong? That the value of multiplier is greater than 1. This is an incorrect statement. Okay, come to the next question. C is 10 plus 0.5y. I is 20. This is very simple. You just have to find GDP. So what is GDP? C plus I plus G plus NX. C is 10 plus 0.5y. I is 20, G is 30. NX is export minus import. Export is 5, import is 0.3y. This is your equation. Just solve this equation. So when you will solve this equation, what will you get? 0.5y minus 0.3y will be 0.2y. All other things added together will be 65. So 0.8y will be 65, y will be 81.25. So your answer to this question will be B. Okay, come to the next question. Again, this is very good question. Why? Because usually whenever we study the Phillips curve, we study the better version of the Phillips curve, where we have a relationship between unemployment and inflation. And actually, inflation is here. And this relation is negative, we know. But did you know that initially, when Phillips actually started thinking about it, he did not think about inflation. What he thought about was wage inflation, right? So this was not inflation. This was wage inflation. And what did he say? He said, look, when there is less unemployment, there are less people fighting for a job, there is less labor available in the market, then the limited people who are fighting for a job can go and ask for higher wages. So when there is less unemployment, you will usually observe that wages are very high. But when there is high unemployment, then there are multiple people. They're willing to work at very low wage. So the wage rate will be low. Again, I have explained this in the intermediate videos. Please have a look at those. Right? How we went from the basic Phillips curve till the augmented Phillips curve. You should be thorough with that concept. So I've gone ahead and explained that in intermediate videos. Okay, so based on that, we know that when there is less unemployment, which means that there is high employment, it leads to high wage rate in the economy. Come to the next question. Consider a closed economy with positive government expenditure and zero taxes. So, you know, when you write this, C plus I plus G This is closed, so I'm not taking an X. This will be C bar plus CY because there is no tax. So disposable income and income are equal. Plus I plus G. So if I bring this on the other side, I will get 1 minus CY is equal to C bar plus I plus G. So I will get SY. 1 minus marginal propensity to consume is marginal propensity to save. We know that, right? So we know that C plus S is 1. So S is 1 minus C. So we will get SY as C bar plus I plus G. Okay. Now it says that marginal propensity to consume, aggregate saving is the product of saving propensity and output. Saving propensity is less than 1. Government expenditure and interest rate are given to you. Investment decisions are formed on the basis of expectations as argued by Keynes and is responding negatively to interest rate. Okay, so I have to change this investment function to I minus BI. I bar minus BI. Okay. Okay. Which of the following statement is wrong? If government expenditure rises by 1 rupee, aggregate savings increase by 1 rupee. Now, what are aggregate savings? Small s into y. This is what it has said. Aggregate saving is product of saving propensity and output. Right? So if this increases by 1 unit, holding all other things constant, shouldn't this also increase exactly by 1 unit? That's correct. If saving propensity rises, aggregate savings will rise. That's also correct. Aggregate savings are small s into y. So if this increases, aggregate savings will increase, right? If interest rate rises, aggregate savings will fall. That's also correct. So if interest rate is increasing, right? So let's say interest rate goes from 4 to 5. This is followed by a negative sign, right? So increase in interest rate will cause decrease in this. Decrease in the aggregate savings. So we will go ahead and we will take this also as correct. Now finally, it says if investment rises by 1 rupee, output rises by more than 1 rupee. So if I just start solving this, I have to ask what is the change in my output. So I can say S dy is equal to di. All other things will go. I just want to find effect between y and I, investment and output. So dy by di will be 1 by s. And this marginal propensity to save, this is less than 1. This is savings rate can be 10%, 20%. It will be less than 100%, right? So this will be 1 by, say, suppose savings rate is 10%. So it will be 1 by 0.1. This will be 10. So this is correct. When you increase investment by 1 rupee, output will increase by 10 rupee. Output will increase by more than rupee. This is also correct. So according to me, none of the statements are incorrect. Everything is correct. Still, you can have a look at this question. Tell me if we missed out any point, but it should be that all these are correct. Supposedly, yahan par they would have said aggregate saving rises by more than 1. That would have been incorrect. Okay, but here they changed it to output. So we will have the multiplier effect in place. Okay, come to the next question. Consider an open economy where output is constrained by balance of payment. The net capital inflow is 0, real exchange rate is fixed, and trade is balanced. This is important. It is saying trade is balanced, which means export and import are equal to each other. And now it is saying import is marginal propensity to import into income. So import is nothing but small m into y. So I will get export is equal to my. Why am I equating the two? Because trade is balanced, right? Now, again, you can take log and show this complete thing. But we know that since this is getting multiplied, growth of export is growth of marginal propensity to import plus growth of output. And marginal propensity to import is a constant. So its growth rate is 0. So we will get growth of x is equal to growth of y, right? And y is growing at 5%, I think. No, exports are growing at 5%. So y will also. Simple question. You should know how to find the basic growth rate, how to take log on both sides, how to differentiate throughout, right? How to convert it into growth rate. That's it. And remember that MPM is a constant. So when you differentiate, when you go ahead and differentiate small m, that will give you 0 here. That is why the two growth rate will become equal. Or in simple words, there cannot be any growth rate of a constant. That will be 0. Come to the next question. The growth rate of labor productivity is 3% and labor supply is 1%. What is the steady state growth rate of output in the Solow model? So just one alert here. See, as long as I'm taking this output as aggregate output, that means capital Y. We know it grows at the rate of N plus G, right? N is the growth rate of labor. G is the growth rate of labor productivity, technology. So it will be 1 plus 3, which is 4. But suppose they would have asked, what is the growth rate of output per capita? You remember that table? Please do it from the notes. Please go to my lectures, do that entire table of Solow model. So output per capita would have grown at the rate of G. And output per augmented labor would have grown at the rate of 0%, right? Because this is Y by AL, and this does not grow at steady state. This is Y by L. This grows at the rate of technology, and this is Y. But you have to read that entire table once. So this is your, please, once you go back, read out this for sure. Go through this entire table of Solow model that we have made, right? Okay, now come to the next question. So suppose that there are two countries, gold land and credit money land. Output in both countries is equal. IS curve is downward sloping. Money supply is fixed. And in gold land, interest is determined by money demand. Ye important line ho gaye. In credit money, interest is fixed. So if you remember, in my recent, when we were doing DSC paper also and ISI paper also, I talked to you about interest rate targeting, if you remember. And I told you that in interest rate targeting, your LM is horizontal. So actually what they have done is, in the first country, they have said in both countries, IS curve is the same. In the first country, LM is upward sloping. So this is your initial output. They start with the same level of output. In the second country, LM is horizontal, but they're meeting at the same level of output. Now they are saying that in both these countries, government is increasing expenditure, which means the IS curve is shifting to the right. So tell me something. In the first country, output will become, new output will be here, where LM meets the new IS. And in the second country, output will meet here, where its LM is equal to its IS. So in the second country, output will increase by more amount, right? Why? Because there will be no crowding out effect. Interest rate is unchanged when government increased its expenditure. So when there is no crowding out effect, output will increase by more, right? So very tricky question, because they didn't mention LM is horizontal, vertical, etc., etc. They talked that interest rate is fixed, and that is why interest rate targeting concept should be clear to you, right? Okay, come to the next part. Now we are going to talk about section 3. I will take the first 5 questions from here. So, which of the following histogram of a variable, which option is true? Now, if you think about this, when I talk about the curves, there are 2 things that can happen. Either it can be positively skewed or negatively skewed. When it is positively skewed, then mean is greater than median is greater than mode, because mean is coming at the last, right? So this is mean, this is average value, this is median, this is mode. So you see that mean is, suppose mean can be 20, median will be 15, mode can be 10, right? So mean is greater than median is greater than mode. And in the negatively skewed, it is opposite. Now come to this diagram and see. This diagram looks like the first one, this, right? So mean is greater than median is greater than mode. Come to the second one. You're given that A and B are disjoint events. Dekho, samjho baat ko. A is here and B is here. They don't have anything in common. Now it says find probability of A complement intersection B. So what is A complement? Everything other than A, right? You have to find its common area with B. So what will be its common area will be? Only B, right? So what is the probability of this? Only probability of B, and that will be 0.50. So this is going to be 0.50. Okay, come to the next question. So this is using the properties of estimators. It should be unbiased, consistent, efficient. So just listen to me. See, if there are 2 estimators of sample of the population mean, जैसे मेरा population का mean है mu. The first sample mean is x1 bar, the second sample mean is x2 bar. I will choose that estimator whose expected value is equal to my population. So I want to choose the estimator which has an expected value equal to the true value. But if all estimators have that property satisfied, then I will choose the estimator with the minimum variance. So I am going to choose the estimator with the minimum variance, right? Which estimator has minimum variance here? Theta 1 hat. So theta 1 hat is a better estimator. That's it. Come to the next question. It says, please refer to the figure below. So you see math part, I mean the stat part is coming pretty easy, right? Y is ln x. It says which of the following are true. So which graph represents ln x? ये बताना है, ठीक है? If I differentiate and I find the slope of this graph, so dy will be 1 by x ln dx. So dy by dx will be 1 by x, which is greater than 0. That means that I should have a curve which is increasing. But if you see all 3 curves have an increasing slope. Now I have to check the rate at which it is increasing. So I will differentiate this again with respect to x. And when I differentiate this with respect to x again, I will get minus 1 by x square, which is less than 0, which is negative. So my curve should be increasing. That means it should be upward sloping. but at a decreasing rate. So increasing at a decreasing rate. Kahan ho raha hai? C pe. In B, it is increasing at an increasing rate. Do you see this? It is increasing at an increasing rate. Increasing rate. It is increasing at a constant rate. It is increasing at a decreasing rate. All are upward sloping, but which is increasing at a decreasing rate? That is what we have to find out. Okay, so come to the last question. Suppose a random variable y is such that probability of y is 1, then variance of y is. So variance of y is e of y square minus ey whole square. In this case, e of c will be c py equal to c. Py equal to c is just 1. So e of c will be c. E of c square will be c square into py equal to c. Py equal to c is 1. So it will be c square. Just put these values. So variance of c will be c square minus c whole square. So that will be c square minus c square, 0. So the variance of c will be 0. Okay, now let's talk about the important part, right? The fish in the river. So essay writing, how do I do this? Dekho, I understand you may not have a knowledge of each and every public policy, and you may not have a knowledge of, what to do around these kind of questions. They are not expecting you to be 100% correct. They are expecting that you have a slight knowledge of how do you deal with data, how do you go ahead and how do you work in the real world scenario. So for example, let's look at this question that they had given. It said that it was observed that this year, during the months of June, July, and August, demand for Manrega work went up as compared to last year. Now you have to think, what is Manrega? Manrega is your, when people go for a guaranteed job, right? When do people go for a guaranteed job? When maybe their job is lost. Now, when can their job be lost? Maybe if you're talking about COVID, they lost their job. They were working in the cities, they came back, their jobs were lost in the cities, and now they are looking up to the government to find job, right? Or maybe these are those people who were into the agricultural sector, and maybe due to some reason, the agriculture was not working this time. So they have to depend on government job this year, right? So you have to think what can be the reason. Why will people approach the government for job? Only when they lose their jobs, right? When will casual labor lose their job? Think about those reasons. Maybe you can, you have to think. Maybe you can say it was a lockdown season during last year. So this year, so people, during this year, so people started looking for job within the government sector. So up to you, they're looking for what kind of analytics you can apply into the question. You can talk about the dip in farm jobs. You can talk about looking for, maybe these people were disguisedly unemployed last year. Now they want to have actual job. You can talk about maybe they want to send some people for extra income. You can talk about maybe awareness created by the government that they have created this program and people should be looking out for a job. And according to my hypothesis can be that jobs in agricultural has decreased. I want to check that, right? Because if agricultural jobs have decreased, then people are looking out for Manrega, right? So my hypothesis can be that people are more aware of other income opportunities like Manrega. So they are coming here and they're going ahead and they're looking out for these income opportunities, right? To kind of increase their income, additional income, right? So you have to make up the answer accordingly, right? Take another question that they gave. So they talked about over the year, there has been many calls to replace in-kind distribution via the public distribution system with a cash transfer program. Again, you have to think, what are the problems when people were standing in lines and getting grains through the government? Why do they want to go for cash transfer? Should this step be taken or not? So you know that the public distribution system is criticized, right? Why? Because of poor targeting, because of corruption, because of high operational cost, etc. So you know, how will you do the study? You can conduct a survey among people, right? You can ask them questions. Like what kind of questions? That think that there is no ration shop, and instead of a ration shop, I am going ahead and I am giving you cash transfer. Will you be better off or not? You can conduct these questionnaires, right? This can be the research that you can do. This is what the question is asking. And then you can list down some things which you think. What are the concerns related to PDS? One, there is corruption. They're irregular. They're unpredictable. A lot of times you can get poor quality grain. So these are the issues that you have with your public distribution system. What are the advantages of cash? You will always get what you want. There is no quality issue, and food security is there. But what are the problems with cash? People can misuse cash, right? People can spend it on drinking, right? Cash is same, but inflation can mean that the same money will buy you lesser grains. In terms of grains, you will always get 10 kgs of grain, whatever be the price, right? But here inflation will be affecting your basket of goods, right? Then there are hassles in collecting money. You may not get the money on time always, right? Your cash may be stolen, right? You have to go and travel to the bank, right? So these are the issues with money. And then you can just give some suggestion that even if people are getting cash, it should be linked to food. So every time there should be a bill given by people that this money is only spent on food, something like that. So what I mean to say is these are all the things that you have to think based on the question that is asked in exam. It's very wide, it's open. But if you go through some basic problems, right? Like this, like the public distribution system is a very common thing. Like Manrega is also very common. So if you go through some of the policies of the government, just have some knowledge of each of the policy of the government, important policies of the government, then you are in a good position to go ahead and write the right answer in the exam. Just keep your mind open up. I just wrote this based on what I know. I don't have to go through, I mean, you know, if I go over net, I will get tons of material. That's not required. What you think are the basic issues with the PDS system should suffice. Even if you elaborate that over 2 pages, you're done. Make sure that you write your answer point by point. This is very important. Each answer should be in points. Make sure that you first give an introduction based on what you think. Then whatever the question is, you talk about its advantages, you talk about its disadvantages, and at the end, you give a summary, right, of what you think out of it. So that, and in all of these should be in different points. The more pointers you create, the more presentable you make, the better your answer is, right? So, you know, what we will do is in my group, I will go ahead and I will give you some other topics, most common topics, which you can read through before you sit for the exam. But till then, try to cover all intermediate lecture videos. I can guarantee nothing is coming above the intermediate videos. That is it that will be required for you to clear this exam, right? And if you do very well in your MCQ paper, there is no stopping from getting admission in this course. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.